I was sorting through the last box from my grandfather's farmhouse when I found it. A small brown leather passbook, the kind banks stopped using 20 years ago. My mother was in the kitchen making coffee, talking about how relieved she was to finally close this chapter. I opened the passbook. Inside was an account number I'd never seen before, and a balance that made my hands go cold. $2,147,332.89. My mother walked in. "What's that?" I closed it. "Just some old papers." She glanced at it, frowned. "Throw it out. Your grandfather kept everything. Most of it's garbage." I nodded, slipped it into my coat pocket, said nothing. 3 days later, I was sitting across from a bank manager I'd never met, listening to her tell me my family had been lying for 15 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually began. My grandfather Eugene died on a Tuesday in October. The funeral was small. My mother cried beautifully. My brother Wyatt stood beside her in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent, looking appropriately somber. I stood in the back. Eugene and I had been close, not in a loud, obvious way. We played chess on Sunday afternoons. We didn't talk much. He'd move a piece, I'd think for a while, and we'd sit in comfortable silence until one of us won. He taught me that patience wasn't weakness, that quiet people see more than loud ones. The day after the funeral, my mother called a family meeting. She sat at the head of the dining table in her house, the one she'd moved into after my father died. Everything about Miriam was precise. Her hair, her posture, the way she folded her hands on the table like a CEO about to deliver quarterly results. "Your grandfather's estate is simple," she said. "The farmhouse, some savings, a few investments. It'll take a few months to settle, but everything will be divided equally." Wyatt nodded. He always nodded when our mother spoke. I said, "What about the accountant? Didn't Grandpa have someone managing his finances?" My mother's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Lawrence Whitmore handled some paperwork years ago, but your grandfather's affairs were very straightforward. There's no need to complicate things." I didn't argue. I just filed that flicker away. 2 weeks later, I was cleaning out the farmhouse. My mother had hired an estate sale company, and they were coming Monday to cart everything off. She'd asked me to box up anything personal before they arrived. The house smelled like dust and old wood. Sunlight came through the kitchen window in flat yellow bars. I moved slowly through each room, opening drawers, checking closets. In the study, behind a stack of tax returns from 2003, I found the passbook. It was wedged into the back of a filing cabinet, tucked inside a manila folder labeled Miscellaneous. The leather was soft, worn at the edges. When I opened it, I saw my grandfather's name printed at the top, and beneath it, an account number that started with digits I didn't recognize. The last entry was dated 3 months before he died. Deposit, $50,000. Current balance, $2,147,332.89. I sat down on the floor. My mother had told us the estate was modest. She'd said there wasn't much to divide. But here, in my hands, was proof of over $2 million my grandfather had apparently hidden away. Or proof that my mother had no idea it existed. Or proof of something worse. I didn't tell my mother about the passbook that night. I went home, made tea, and sat at my kitchen table with a small brown book in front of me. The account number was from a regional bank I'd never heard of, First Union Trust. I searched for it online. One location about 40 minutes outside the city. Hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. I called in sick to work on Thursday and drove out there. The bank was in a strip mall next to a dry cleaner and a place that sold custom blinds. Inside, it was quiet. 2 teller windows, a desk with a woman typing, fluorescent lights humming overhead. I walked up to the desk. The nameplate said Margaret Chen, branch manager. "I found this passbook," I said. "It belonged to my grandfather. He passed away recently, and I'm trying to understand what it is." Margaret took the passbook, opened it, and her face changed. Not dramatically, just a small tightening around her eyes. "One moment," she said. She disappeared into a back office. I stood there for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably 3. When she came back, she gestured to a small conference room off to the side. "Please, have a seat." I sat. She closed the door. "This account is still active," she said carefully. "It's a custodial trust account opened in 2006 by Eugene Garrett Gross. You said he passed away?" 3 weeks ago." She nodded slowly. "I'm very sorry for your loss. May I ask, how did you come to have this passbook?" "I found it in his house. My family is settling his estate." "And the estate attorney? Have they been notified of this account?" I hesitated. "There's no estate attorney. My mother is handling everything. She said it was straightforward." Margaret's expression didn't change, but I saw her fingers tap twice on the table. A small, controlled movement. "Miss Gross," she said, "I need to be very careful about what I say, but I think there are some things you should know." She opened a file on the table in front of her. "Your grandfather opened this account 18 years ago. It was set up as a custodial trust with very specific instructions. The account could not be accessed by anyone except him during his lifetime. After his death, the funds would transfer to a single named beneficiary." "Who?" "You, Danica Gross." I stared at her. "The account has never been touched," she continued. "Your grandfather made regular deposits over the years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The final deposit was made in July, 3 months before he died. $50,000. My hands felt cold. "My mother doesn't know about this." Margaret closed the file. "I can't speak to what your mother knows or doesn't know, but I can tell you this. 2 years ago, someone tried to access this account using a power of attorney document." "Who?" "Miriam Gross, your mother." The room felt smaller. "She presented paperwork claiming she had full financial authority over your grandfather's affairs due to cognitive decline. She requested access to all accounts held in his name." I could barely breathe. "What happened?" "We ran our standard verification process. The power of attorney document had your grandfather's signature, but something didn't match our records. We contacted him directly by phone. His number was on file from when he opened the account. He told us he had not authorized anyone to access this account. He said if anyone tried again, we were to deny them and notify him immediately." Margaret looked at me steadily. "He also said that if anything happened to him, we were to contact Lawrence Whitmore, his attorney, and provide him with copies of any fraudulent access attempts." I sat very still. My mother had tried to steal from him. She had forged documents, and my grandfather had known. "Did she try again?" I asked. "No. After we denied her request and contacted your grandfather, there were no further attempts." I thought about my mother at the funeral. Her tears, her composed grief, her talk of simple estates and equal division. "What do I do now?" I asked. Margaret slid a business card across the table. "This is Lawrence Whitmore's office. Your grandfather left very clear instructions. Mr. Whitmore is expecting someone from the family to contact him. He has additional documentation for you." I took the card. My hand was shaking. "One more thing," Margaret said quietly. "Your grandfather came here in person 4 months before he died. He updated his beneficiary information and left a sealed letter in our vault. He said it was for you, to be given to you only after his estate was supposedly settled by your mother. He wanted you to see how she handled things first." She stood, walked to a small safe in the corner, and returned with a white envelope. My name was written on it in my grandfather's careful, slanted handwriting. I held it but didn't open it. Not yet. "Thank you," I said. Margaret nodded. "Your grandfather was a very methodical man, Miss Gross. Whatever he prepared for, he prepared thoroughly." I walked out of that bank and sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the envelope. Then I drove to Lawrence Whitmore's office. Lawrence Whitmore's office was in an older building downtown. the kind with marble steps and brass fixtures that hadn't been polished in years. The directory in the lobby listed him on the 3rd floor. Whitmore and Associates, Estate Law. I took the stairs. The office smelled like paper and old wood. A receptionist who looked about 70 glanced up from her desk. "I'm here to see Mr. Whitmore," I said. "My name is Danica Gross." Her face softened. "Oh, yes, he's been expecting you. Go right in." She gestured to a door on the left. Lawrence Whitmore stood when I entered. He was tall, slightly stooped, with white hair and glasses that sat low on his nose. His handshake was firm. "Miss Gross, please sit down. I'm very sorry about Eugene. He was a good man." "Thank you." He studied me for a moment, then opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. He set it on the desk between us, but didn't open it yet. "Your grandfather and I played chess every Tuesday for 40 years, he said. Did you know that? I shook my head. He was the most methodical person I ever met. When he came to me in 2020 and told me what was happening, I believed him immediately. Eugene didn't make accusations lightly." "What did he tell you?" Whitmore opened the folder. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Photocopies of bank statements, transaction records, handwritten logs. On top was a side-by-side comparison of 2 signatures. Both said Eugene G. Gross, but one had loops that were too smooth, pressure that was too even. "Your mother forged his signature," Whitmore said quietly. "Multiple times. On power of attorney documents, on financial authorizations, on medical competency evaluations. She did it carefully. Well enough to fool most people, but not well enough to fool a bank's fraud detection system, and not well enough to fool an accountant who spent 4 decades spotting discrepancies." I stared at the signatures. "Your grandfather knew what she was doing almost from the beginning," Whitmore continued. "But he was trapped. She had legal authority. She controlled his access to the outside world. Every time he tried to push back, she tightened her control. So he did what he did best. He documented everything." He turned the pages slowly. Bank statements showing withdrawals Eugene had never authorized, transfers to accounts he didn't recognize, a detailed log in my grandfather's handwriting, listing dates, amounts, descriptions, 4 years of meticulous notes. He came to me in 2020 and said he needed to prepare for what would happen after he was gone. He said no one would believe him while he was alive, so he was building a case for after. Whitmore pulled out another document, a notarized statement dated March 2022. He wrote this 2 years before he died. He was of sound mind. 3 doctors confirmed it. He described everything your mother had done, how she'd convinced people he was losing his memory when he wasn't, how she'd isolated him, how she'd stolen from him systematically while pretending to care for him. I felt something tighten in my chest. At the end of the statement, Whitmore said, he wrote that he was leaving all of this evidence to you. He said you were the only one who would do what was right, that you asked questions other people were afraid to ask. He slid the folder across the desk. "This is yours now, Danica." Everything he gathered, everything he prepared. He wanted you to have it after your mother had shown her hand, after you'd seen how she planned to handle his estate. I opened the envelope Margaret had given me at the bank. Inside was a single handwritten page. "Danica, if you're reading this, you found the passbook. You went to the bank. You didn't let it go. I knew you wouldn't. By now you know what your mother tried to do. You know she's been lying for years. I'm sorry you have to carry this, but I trust you to finish what I couldn't. Take everything to the police. Don't warn her. Don't give her time to prepare. She's had 15 years. That's enough. I love you. Grandpa." I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. "What do I do now?" I asked. Whitmore reached for his phone. "There's a detective I know. Her name is Sarah Jefferson. She works financial crimes. I've already spoken with her. She's waiting for your call." He wrote a number on a slip of paper and handed it to me. I looked at the folder, at the evidence, At 4 years of my grandfather's patience, carefully recorded in his slanted handwriting. He spent his last years building this, I said quietly. Yes, Whitmore said. And he trusted you to use it. I stood, took the folder, shook his hand. Then I walked out into the cold afternoon and called Detective Sarah Jefferson. She answered on the second ring. Miss Gross, she said, I've been waiting to hear from you. Detective Sarah Jefferson met me at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the police station. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with short dark hair and the kind of direct eye contact that made you want to tell the truth. She ordered black coffee. I ordered tea I didn't drink. Lawrence Whitmore gave me the background, she said, but I need to hear it from you. Start from the beginning. I told her everything. The passbook, the bank, the forged signatures, the folder full of evidence my grandfather had spent 4 years building. She listened without interrupting, took notes in a small pad. When I finished, she sat back and looked at me for a long moment. Your grandfather was smart, she said. Most victims of elder financial abuse never get justice because the evidence disappears. But he documented everything. That's rare. What happens now? I open an official investigation. I'll need the original documents from Whitmore. The bank will provide their records. We'll trace every transaction your mother made, every account she accessed, every withdrawal she authorized. She paused. I need to ask you something difficult. Can you act normally around your mother while we build the case? My stomach tightened. You want me to pretend I don't know? Yes. If she suspects we're investigating, she could destroy evidence, transfer assets, or flee. We need time to freeze her accounts and secure everything. That means you go to family dinners. You answer her calls. You don't give her any reason to think something's wrong. I thought about sitting across from my mother, knowing what she'd done and saying nothing. How long? I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I nodded slowly. Okay. Jefferson slid a card across the table. Call me if anything changes, if she asks unusual questions, if she starts moving money, anything. I took the card. One more thing, Jefferson said. Does anyone else in your family know about the hidden account? I thought about Wyatt, my brother who always sided with our mother, who had called me dramatic when I'd asked too many questions at the funeral. No, I said. Just me. Jefferson nodded. Keep it that way. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. My mother called on Wednesday. I'm making dinner Sunday, just family. Can you come? Of course, I said. Sunday dinner was at her house. The table was set with the good plates, the ones she only used when she wanted things to look proper. Wyatt was already there, sitting in the chair our father used to occupy. My mother's chicken was dry, as always. She talked about the farmhouse. She'd found a buyer. Good price. Fast closing. It's a relief, she said. Your grandfather held on to that place too long. It needed work he wasn't willing to do. Wyatt nodded. Probably for the best. Clean break. I cut my chicken into small pieces and chewed slowly. The estate should be settled by spring, my mother continued. Once the house sells, we'll divide everything equally. Your grandfather would have wanted that. I looked at her. She smiled. Family first, she said. That's what matters. I smiled back, said nothing. After dinner, she pulled me aside in the kitchen while Wyatt took a phone call in the other room. I know we don't always see eye to eye, she said softly, but I'm glad you're here. Your grandfather would have wanted us to stick together. Her voice was warm, concerned, motherly. I thought about the forged signatures, the stolen money, the lies. Of course, Mom, I said. We're family. She hugged me. I stood there and let her. Detective Jefferson called me on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after our first meeting. We've traced the money, she said. Your mother transferred approximately $890,000 from your grandfather's accounts over a 6-year period. She used the forged power of attorney to access his savings, his pension fund, and several investment accounts he'd set up decades ago. I sat down. Where did it go? Some of it went into her personal accounts. Some went to pay off her mortgage. But a significant portion, over $600,000, went to a shell company called Garrett Holdings, LLC. I've never heard of it. Neither had we. So we dug deeper. Jefferson paused. The company is registered under the name Wyatt Garrett Gross, your brother. The room went silent. He wasn't just a recipient, Jefferson continued. He helped her hide it. He created the company structure. He processed the transfers. He knew exactly where the money came from. My brother, Golden Child Wyatt, with his expensive suits and his condescending advice, he'd helped her steal from our grandfather. We also found something else, Jefferson said. Your mother has a history. In 2002, her own mother died. The estate was supposed to be worth about $200,000. When it was settled, there was almost nothing left. Family members suspected theft, but they couldn't prove it. I closed my eyes. Your grandfather knew, Jefferson said quietly. That's why he never trusted her. That's why he was so careful. He'd seen her do it before. What happens now? I asked. We execute the warrants. Simultaneous arrests. Your mother and your brother. We've frozen their accounts, seized their assets. They won't see it coming. When? Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. I sat in my apartment that night and didn't sleep. I thought about my grandfather playing chess, moving pieces slowly, thinking 3 steps ahead. He'd sacrificed his final years to set this trap, and tomorrow, it would finally close. Detective Jefferson called me at 7:15 the next morning. It's done, she said. Both arrests went smoothly, no incidents. I was sitting at my kitchen table with cold coffee in front of me. I hadn't been able to drink it. What happened? Your mother answered the door in her bathrobe. She saw the uniforms and tried to explain it away immediately. Said your grandfather was confused. Said she was protecting him. But when I showed her the forensic analysis of the forged signatures and the bank records and your grandfather's notarized statement, she stopped talking. Jefferson paused. She asked for her lawyer. We processed her and took her in. No drama, just procedure. And Wyatt? He was at his office. We arrested him in front of his colleagues during a client meeting. He went pale. Kept saying there must be some mistake. Mentioned his lawyer about 6 times before we even got him to the car. I imagined Wyatt in his conference room, surrounded by the people he'd worked so hard to impress, being handcuffed and let out. Thank you, I said quietly. Your grandfather did most of the work, Jefferson said. We're just finishing it. The preliminary hearing was 3 weeks later. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched my mother and brother enter separately, both in different shades of gray, both flanked by attorneys. My mother's lawyer was tall, silver-haired, expensive-looking. He moved with the confidence of someone who thought he could talk his way out of anything. Wyatt's lawyer was younger, sharper, the kind who billed by the minute. The prosecutor was a woman named Elena Marsh. She wore a simple navy suit and carried a single leather folder. The judge called the court to order. Marsh presented the charges: fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse, theft, money laundering for Wyatt. My mother's lawyer stood immediately. Your Honor, we intend to show that Mrs. Gross acted in good faith as a caretaker for a man suffering from cognitive decline. Her father-in-law was not of sound mind. His accusations were the result of confusion and paranoia. Marsh didn't react. She simply opened her folder. Your Honor, the prosecution has statements from 3 licensed physicians who examined Eugene Gross between 2018 and 2023. All 3 confirm he showed no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment. He was lucid, coherent, and fully aware. She placed the medical reports on the table. The court-ordered incompetency ruling that gave Mrs. Gross power of attorney was based on false information she provided. She deliberately misrepresented her father-in-law's mental state to gain control of his finances. My mother's lawyer shifted slightly. Marsh continued. We also have forensic analysis of the signatures on the power of attorney documents. They were traced, not signed. The pressure patterns are inconsistent with natural handwriting. Mrs. Gross forged her father-in-law's signature to commit fraud. She placed another document on the table. And finally, we have a notarized sworn statement from Mr. Gross himself, dated March 2022, in which he describes in detail how his daughter-in-law systematically stole from him while convincing others he was losing his mind. The judge looked at my mother. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, face blank. Wyatt's lawyer tried next. Your Honor, my client had no knowledge of any wrongdoing. He received financial gifts from his mother, which is common in families. He had no reason to believe those funds were obtained illegally. Marsh turned a page. Mr. Wyatt Gross created Garrett Holdings LLC using his middle name to obscure the connection. He transferred over $600,000 through that company over 5 years. He signed incorporation documents. He filed tax returns. He made investment decisions with the money. She looked at Wyatt's lawyer. He didn't receive gifts. He laundered stolen funds through a shell corporation. The paperwork is explicit. The judge set bail. High for my mother. Higher for Wyatt. As they were let out, my mother's eyes found mine across the courtroom. She didn't look angry. She looked empty. Wyatt wouldn't meet my gaze at all. 2 days later, Wyatt's lawyer called me. Miss Gross, my client would like to speak with you. He wants to apologize. He's hoping you might consider— No, I said. He's willing to testify against your mother in exchange for a reduced sentence. He says he was manipulated, that he didn't understand the full scope. Tell my brother that our grandfather taught me chess, I said. And in chess, you don't negotiate with pawns. I hung up. The prosecutor called me that afternoon. Wyatt Gross's attorney approached us with the same offer, Marsh said. We declined. The evidence against him is solid. We don't need his cooperation. Good, I said. There's something else you should know. Your mother tried to access her accounts yesterday. They're frozen, but she made the attempt. She also called the farmhouse buyer and tried to expedite the closing. She's getting desperate. What does that mean? It means she knows the walls are closing in. The trial is set for February. Until then, stay clear of her. Don't answer calls. Don't meet with her. Let the system work. I agreed. But my mother tried anyway. She sent letters, long, handwritten letters full of justifications and blame. She said I'd misunderstood. She said my grandfather had been confused, and she'd only been trying to help. She said I was tearing the family apart over money. I read the first one. Then I stopped opening them. Wyatt sent one message through his lawyer. Just a single line. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late to matter. The trial began on a cold morning in early February. The courthouse was old, with wood-paneled walls and high ceilings that made every sound echo. I sat 3 rows back, near the aisle, where I could see everything but didn't have to be seen. My mother entered first, walking beside her lawyer with her head up, shoulders back. She wore a charcoal suit and pearl earrings. She looked like someone's respectable mother, not a thief. Wyatt came in separately. His suit didn't fit as well as it used to. He'd lost weight. His lawyer whispered something to him, and he nodded without looking up. The jury filed in. 12 people who didn't know my family, didn't know my grandfather, didn't know anything except what they'd hear in this room. Prosecutor Elena Marsh stood and began. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply walked the jury through the evidence, piece by piece, like someone assembling a puzzle in slow motion. The forged signatures, displayed on a screen large enough for everyone to see. The loops too smooth. The pressure too even. The bank records, showing withdrawals my grandfather never authorized, transfers he never approved. The timeline, matching my mother's access to his accounts with sudden drops in his savings. The shell company, traced back to Wyatt through incorporation documents he'd signed himself. And finally, my grandfather's statement. Marsh read it aloud, every word. The whole courtroom went silent. I am of sound mind. I know exactly what is happening to me. My daughter-in-law has stolen from me for years while pretending to care for me. She convinced doctors I was losing my memory, so no one would believe me when I told the truth. I am leaving this record so that one day, someone will. I watched my mother's face. She didn't move, but her hands, folded on the table in front of her, were shaking. The defense tried. My mother's lawyer brought in a geriatric specialist who testified that elderly people often experience paranoia, even without dementia, that they sometimes make false accusations against caregivers. Marsh asked one question on cross-examination. Did you ever personally examine Eugene Gross? No. Thank you. No further questions. Wyatt's lawyer argued that his client had simply trusted his mother, that he'd believed the money was a legitimate gift, that he had no way of knowing it was stolen. Marsh displayed the incorporation documents for Garrett Holdings, LLC, showed the jury how Wyatt had used his middle name to create distance, how he'd filed taxes on the income, how he'd made investment decisions with funds he claimed to know nothing about. Does that sound like someone who didn't know? She asked the jury. The trial lasted 6 days. On the 7th day, the jury came back. Guilty on all counts, both of them. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. Before the judge delivered the sentences, Marsh asked to read my grandfather's statement one more time. Not the legal one, the personal one he'd left for me at the bank. The judge allowed it. Marsh stood and read in a clear, steady voice. My daughter-in-law stole my money and my dignity. She convinced the world I was losing my mind while she emptied my life savings. No one believed me. But I am not confused. I know exactly what is being done to me. And I am leaving a record so that one day the truth will come out. The courtroom was silent. The judge looked at my mother for a long moment. Then he spoke. Mrs. Gross, you didn't just steal money. You stole your father-in-law's autonomy. You weaponized the very systems meant to protect vulnerable people, and you used them to silence him. That is a profound betrayal. He paused. 7 years in federal prison. Full restitution. Everything you own will be liquidated and returned to the estate. My mother's face didn't change, but she closed her eyes for just a moment. The judge turned to Wyatt. Mr. Gross, you enabled this crime. You didn't just accept money. You built infrastructure to hide it. You knew what you were doing. 3 years in federal prison. Felony conviction. You will carry this for the rest of your life. Wyatt's lawyer leaned over and whispered something. Wyatt nodded. He still wouldn't look at me. The judge dismissed the court. I sat there as people filed out, as the lawyers gathered their papers, as my mother and brother were led away through separate doors. Detective Jefferson found me in the hallway afterward. Your grandfather would be proud, she said. I nodded. Couldn't quite speak yet. He spent years building this case, she continued. You finished it. That's not nothing. I shook her hand, thanked her, walked out into the February cold. The sky was clear. The air smelled like snow that hadn't fallen yet. I drove home slowly, listening to nothing, thinking about my grandfather moving chess pieces across a board, 3 steps ahead. Always patient. The truth is patient, he used to say. It can wait longer than any lie. He'd been right. Lawrence Whitmore called me 3 days after the sentencing. There's one more thing, he said. Your grandfather left something else for you. When you're ready, come by the office. I went that afternoon. Whitmore handed me an envelope, smaller this time, my name on the front in my grandfather's handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, 2 pages, written a month before he died. My dearest Danica, if you're reading this, then you found the passbook. You followed the trail. You did what I knew you would do. I want you to understand why I chose you. Your brother was always his mother's son. I watched him learn her values, taking shortcuts, believing the ends justify the means. I hoped he would change. But hope is not a strategy. Your mother never loved me. She loved what I represented: security, access to resources she could control. When your father died, she saw an opportunity: an old man with money and no one to protect him. She thought I was an easy target. She was wrong. I knew what she was doing almost from the beginning. I'm an accountant, Danica. I spent 40 years tracking numbers, finding discrepancies. Did she really think I wouldn't notice my own money disappearing? But I was trapped. She had legal authority. She'd convinced everyone I was losing my mind. Every time I tried to fight back, she tightened her grip. So I did what I do best. I documented. I prepared. I waited. The truth is patient. It can wait longer than any lie. I hid what I could, built the evidence, left instructions with Lawrence, and I trusted you to finish what I started. You were always different from the rest of them. You visited me because you wanted to, not because you expected something. You played chess with me for the game, not the inheritance. You asked questions that made your mother uncomfortable. That's why I chose you. Because I knew when you found the passbook, you wouldn't stop until you found the truth. And I knew when you found the truth, you would do what was right. I'm sorry for the burden I've left you. I know it won't be easy, but I also know you're strong enough to carry it. Live well, Danica. Use the money for something that matters. Build something that lasts. Be happy. I spent my last years fighting a battle I couldn't win, but I made sure you would win it for me. Thank you for being the granddaughter I always hoped for. With all my love, Grandpa Eugene. I sat in Whitmore's office and cried. Not from sadness, from something deeper. Something that felt like being seen. Whitmore explained the rest quietly. The hidden account was mine. The restitution from my mother and Wyatt would be added to it. The farmhouse sale proceeds would come to me. Total, once everything was processed, would be approximately $2.5 million. I thanked him, shook his hand, walked out into the afternoon light. That was 6 months ago. I quit my job at the law firm, paid off my debts, bought a small building downtown with big windows and good light. I opened a bookshop. It's the kind of place with comfortable chairs and the smell of coffee and shelves full of stories people forgot they were looking for. I named it Turning Pages. My grandfather would have appreciated that. In the back corner, there's a chess table, 2 chairs, a board with the pieces set up and ready. Sometimes customers sit down and play. Sometimes I join them. Above the table hangs a framed photograph of my grandfather, and next to it, in simple black letters on white paper, his favorite saying, "The truth is patient. It can wait longer than any lie." My mother writes letters sometimes. Long, rambling letters full of blame and demands for forgiveness. She says I betrayed the family. She says I ruined everything. I don't respond. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. Wyatt's wife divorced him while he was awaiting sentencing. His friends disappeared. When he gets out, he'll have a felony record and nothing to show for all those years of so-called success. I don't think about them much anymore. What I think about is my grandfather, moving chess pieces slowly, 3 steps ahead, patient and methodical until the very end. He spent his final years fighting for justice, and I was the one who delivered it. Last week, a woman came into the shop. She was about my age, maybe a little older. She bought a book on estate law and lingered by the chess table. "My grandmother just passed," she said quietly. "My aunt is handling everything, but something feels wrong. I don't know how to explain it." I looked at her for a moment. "Trust that feeling," I said. "And if you need help figuring out what to do, come back. I know some people." She nodded, thanked me, left with the book under her arm. I watched her go and thought about how many people out there are sitting with that same quiet suspicion, that same helpless anger, not knowing where to start. My grandfather taught me that patience wins, but he also taught me that someone has to be willing to finish the fight. If this story meant something to you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and subscribe. And I'd love to know. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. 2 more stories you'll probably want to hear are coming up on your screen next. Click one and keep going. Thanks for listening.